closest yellow jersey race in Tour history heads for the Alps today. Australia's Cadel Evans holds it by the grand total of 1 second. Frank Schleck of Luxembourg is after it, and he's got the teammates to help him attack the race leader. Evans is alone at the top of the standings, and he's likely to be alone on the big climbs of the Tour's first day in the Alps. Frank Schleck will have help, most notably from his team leader Carlos Sastre of Spain in 6th place, a minute 28 behind Evans, who also has to keep an eye on Russia's Denis Menshov, who's 57 seconds down in 5th. Alejandro Valverde in 12th should show us today whether or not his challenge has definitively faded. He's 4:41 down in 12th place. Damiano Cunego in 14th will be on home territory when the race crosses into Italy, and he can climb well when he's on form. Frank Schleck's brother Andy is nearly 9 minutes down, but he's another tactical weapon for CSC to employ against Evans. Hello, we're up at just under 1,500 metres at the Italian ski resort of Prato Nervoso. It's the first big day in the Alps for the Tour, and the Tour's only trip outside France this year. By the way, if you're wondering why you didn't see Mark Cavendish's name on our daily standings graphics, that's because it's the first big day in the Alps. He has decided to pack his cleats, his record-breaking 4 stage wins and his hugely enhanced reputation, and head home rather than hauling himself through the mountains. And when we show you today's stage in a few minutes, you probably won't blame him. Now, Chris Boardman, you're one of the elite inner circle who has Mark's mobile number. You've spoken to him today. What did he tell you about the decision to go?
Well, the first thing he did was laugh because he could see it was pouring down with rain outside and he was in the team car, so he's certainly not regretting the decision. He's planning to go straight back to the Isle of Man, spend a week there, and then ride some criterium races and then join up with the Great Britain team for the Olympics very late.
So he's not actually going to camp. People will be a lot of interest in him riding the Madison with Bradley Wiggins in Beijing, but he's not going to be doing training. He's using the Tour and other races for training.
No, they said from the start it was a high-risk strategy, and they were prepared for Mark to be here for the whole race. Since he's not going to do that, as far as the team's concerned, he's not going to change his plans. He's going to follow his own programme and meet up late, as was the original case.
Do you think the secret plan within Team Columbia, though, was not to subject him to the torture of the Alps? We had him on the programme last night, and he was still saying, well, it's day by day, but do you think that was the public face?
Yeah, I mean, if you ask somebody what they're going to do immediately after a stage when they're full of adrenaline, and in his case, often just one, then they're going to look at it very positively. But once that all goes away and you're left with just the pain in the legs, really, I think it was inevitable if we looked at it like that.
All right, on with today's stage then, and let's take a look at what Mark Cavendish is missing or not. Stage 15. There it is, 183 kilometres, stage 15, from Embrun to Prato Nervoso, with a giant Alp in the middle of it and a medium-sized one at the end. The climbing starts early. Just 58 kilometres into the stage is the summit of the super category Col Daniel at just under 2,800 metres. That marks the French-Italian border, and once the riders are over it in Italy, there's one third category climb to negotiate, the slightly sinister-sounding Col de Morte, the climb of death, before the final ascent of the day, up here to the ski resort of Prato Nervoso at 1,440 metres. Well, that first climb of the day was a big one, the Col Daniel. 4 men attacked and got out front on it. 2 Spaniards, Egui Martinez of Euskaltel Euskadi and Jose Luis Arieta of the AG2R team. There was an American, Danny Pate of Garmin Chipotle, and Simon Gerrans, the Australian, for Credit Agricole. They had a lead of around 13 minutes approaching the 1 kilometre mark to the summit. Let's get over and join commentary and see what happened.
I think he is.
Well, I saw Alejandro
we are coming up to the last kilometre here on the Col Daniel. The riders who led all the way. This is the back of the groups. The riders are going off quite quickly. Robin McHugh in the sprinter has gone. Mark Cavendish, I'm afraid to say, hasn't gone. He went before the race started today. He's on his way back to the Isle of Man, I would think, out of the race and heading to Beijing. But this is the chaos at the rear of the field now. And back to the 4 leaders. Danny Pate at the back, the American, seems to be struggling a little bit, but he should go over the top with the other 3.
Well, they'd be happy because just a few moments ago they saw the banner indicating 1 kilometre left to go to the summit of this climb, and then, Phil, they will line up for a 40-kilometre descent down into the valley and, of course, into the country of Italy. Be careful, Mr. Martinez, there, because it's rather precarious trying to put a racing cape on going uphill at not much more than 20 kilometres an hour.
Yes, he's trying to put his gilet on here because very shortly, it's quite cold up here. It's only about 10 degrees, which is 50 Fahrenheit. and they want to wrap up warm for the long descent. It is a long descent into the valley, and I think that's the reason that the main field honestly haven't turned a pedaling anger. Look at the time gap, 13 minutes. The nearest rider to the yellow jersey is 53 minutes behind, so there's no threats here. They are waiting for showdown on the climb to Prato Nervoso, that's for sure.
Well, Danny Pate just sitting at the back of the group, taking on board his racing cape there. And as you can see over the last few moments, in fact, Danny Pate has not contributed at all to the pacemaking. The rest of it has been pretty much evenly shared amongst the three riders in front of him. Now, that's not really a surprise to me, Phil, because as we said earlier down the climb, those three riders are good climbers in their own right, while Danny Pate, I think he's here really just trying to survive.
Well, this is a big moment. He's never ridden the Tour de France before. He's never seen the Alps in competition. And here he is about to go over the top of one of the highest climbs in the race this year. It stands at over 9,000 feet, and he's going up with the leaders, and with a lead of 13 minutes as well.
Well, as you say, Phil, not necessarily one of the highest roads in the Tour de France this year, but almost one of the highest roads in Europe as well, because this is the third highest mountain pass in Europe. As you can see, fortunately, I think for Danny Pate, he's picking up a little bit of the tailwind, so he should survive and go over the summit of this climb with the rest of the guys. And even if he did get dislodged by 5 or 10 seconds on the long 40-kilometre descent, I'm absolutely certain he'd make his way back to make contact.
Poor Simon Gerrans also having a problem here, pulling on his warmer jacket for the long descent. It's quite cold up here. You can see that by the spectators. And they will need to wrap up for the way down. These riders in these days in the mountains live in fear of catching cold on the way down, and they'll wrap up as warm as they can because they don't want a bout of bronchitis in 3 or 4 days.
No, they certainly don't, and especially when, in fact, we're just getting news coming through, and I'm not surprised because Stein de Volder, apparently, Phil, has just abandoned the race. Now, he's a guy who we were expecting to see ride exceptionally well in the Tour de France this year, but obviously he just couldn't take the pace of this climb.
He'll be very, very disappointed about that, in fact, Paul, because he did want a top 10 finish, but we saw him in the Tour of Switzerland, and he was also cracking in that race, so it really, I suppose, was to be expected. His form wasn't timed quite right.
It wasn't right there, and just at the side of the road, you can see a lot of the teams have actually sent their managers and the soigneurs up to the top of the climb here, and this really is to pass up raincoats to the riders because they know there's the banner on the side of the road indicating Italia. So we're now crossing over into Italy, and we haven't quite reached the summit as Egoy Martinez accelerates a fraction there, Phil, and that's to get himself not only maximum points here, but maximum prize purse as well.
Well, he takes it ahead of Arrieta, and then not surprisingly now, it'll be no problem for Danny here. He'll just put his jacket on, and he'll get over the cut. So it's Martinez, Arrieta, Simon Gerrans of Australia goes over in third, and Danny Pate of the USA and Garmin Chipotle, he's over in fourth. And a big wait now for the next King of the Mountains points. Look at the valley now. This is quite a dangerous descent. It starts very steeply and twists. We're in Italy now as the race starts to wind its way down to the valley. If our camera just panned left, you would see an absolutely stunning sight.
Well, it looks like Jose Luis Arrieta wants to go back to the team car because I think he too now wants to take on board a racing cape if he can. The problem is, Phil, at the top of this climb here, because of the altitude, we're looking at around about 9 degrees Celsius. So the chill factor on a descent of 40 kilometers can really chill you right to the very heart of your core.
Well, this is Alexander Kudzinski, the Czech Republic rider rather, on Liquigas. He's also slipping away. As riders now just keep the tempo. Sebastian Langeveld is the Rabobank rider in the orange there. Stefan Ogier is the red rider in the Cofidis colours. They're all slipping back to what we will call the autobus, which will gather strength around each other and just keep a tempo to race to the finish to stop being eliminated by the time they get to the top of Prato Nervoso. They are going to see in those last 12 kilometres or so of racing probably the biggest crowd we've seen so far in this year's Tour de France.
Now, Arrieta at the back here, hand up, he's trying to call forward his car, Phil, because he wants to take on board a racing cape because of the fact that we're looking at a descent that these riders are going to face up to for around about 40 minutes. It'll take them from the top of the climb down into the valley below. And with the temperatures plummeting to 9 degrees Celsius here, the chill factor is quite phenomenal.
Well, look at the wind, Paul. The flag is standing out there. It's coming from the right, obviously, but as they descend and they twist, they'll feel it from all 4 directions. There's the team car arriving.
And that's not going to be an easy job of work for the mechanic in the car behind to pass up this racing cake. Then after that, at 50 miles an hour, Phil, trying to put it on won't be much fun either.
No, they are professionals. I always say, do not try this. You youngsters riding your bikes in any roads, not just the mountains of France, is a very dangerous thing to do.
Suffering there was Philippe Gilbert, and just a little bit behind him, and that's a little bit of a surprise to me. Alexander Botcherov at the back end of the group.
There's been some strange boys dropping off first today, Paul, not least Stein de Volder, of course, who's now packed himself his bag and he's heading home tonight before the rest day tomorrow, which is staying here in Italy with the Tour de France.
Man in the dark glasses there, by the way, Jaroslav Popovic. Now, he's a serious ally for Cadel Evans. He's probably his #1 lieutenant. This is the chaos at the back now as we get further up to the summit of this climb. Just slipping away, number 46 there is a man who's done an awful lot of work in the early part of the Tour de France, Adam Hansen. He's suffering with the climb here, just trying to stay in contact. Although Adam Hansen is a great mountain biker, he's a 2-time winner of the Crocodile Trophy, a race in Queensland, in the northern part of Australia. It's a real tough mountain bike stage race, and he's won it on 2 occasions, which has earned him the nickname of Crocodile Man. And here he's trying to get his teeth into this climb if he can. He realizes, though, as an experienced rider, if he can get over the summit within a minute or so of the leaders or the group that he was with, he should be able to catch up with the group on the descent. Johan van Sommeren there, suffering a little bit. You see the faces of these riders.
Good, though, doesn't he?
He looks pretty good. He's a great bike rider. Now this is the precarious part of the descent, and I think I have a feeling Jose Luis Arrieta, Phil, decided.
Look at this, Paul. A bit of a tight one.
Certainly is. To be very careful.
I think somebody's crashed, you know. No, there he is. Oh dear, there's one missing for a moment.
Spectator. But you get a chance to see how precarious this descent is, and you certainly don't want to take too many risks because, ladies and gentlemen, there is no safety net here this afternoon.
No, brake hard, and your rims get hot too when you apply those brakes, so you must cool them off when you get the straights. They're taking it very wide. Danny Pate went very wide there.
He's a couple of occasions he's taken a bad line there. They're actually very difficult corners to judge these because they change halfway around. So you start to pick a good line going into the corner, you get halfway around and realize, uh-oh, this is the wrong line, and you have to try and correct it.
That's right, they're not horseshoe bends, they're more like a pear. You go back in on yourself. And it looks as though Simon Gerrans is a very good descender here as he pushes on. Danny's lying off the back. You've got to make your own line. You mustn't try to follow one of the other riders because you may not read it right.
Difficult thing is you've got to accelerate, and then you've got to make sure you get the right entry speed going into the corner. Now you can see there's a lot of damage has been done just at the back. 165, that's Philippe Gilbert. Alongside him, 83, is Alexander Botcherov. Adam Hansen, 46.
Yes, surprisingly, Smith, I think, has come back too. Well, he rode well before. The champion of Denmark, Mickey Sorensen, number 18 on CSC. Meanwhile, life at the front. Robbie Hunter of Barlow World is in the red and riding extremely well. And these boys have just kept up a good tempo. Cadel Evans has moved much nearer the front in that yellow jersey. And life on the other side in Italy now.
Yep, and a good sign as well with 3 riders from Silence Lotto at the front end of the main field. So Cadel Evans has still got a large number of allies with him. But as you can see, Phil, this is not only a precarious and technical descent, it's quite a scary one too.
Yes, Danny isn't the best of descenders watching these pictures either. Let's hope that he can just hold these guys. The roads get a bit straighter as we get down the valley. You can probably hear the wind whistling just now. It is very, very strong today. Much stronger than when we actually drove over last night.
Absolutely. It really is. It's an incredible backdrop. This is some of the most beautiful scenery I think I've seen in the Tour de France. Not surprisingly, Oscar Freire in a spot of bother too. This is not the kind of terrain that the sprinters really do enjoy.
Kuzinski coming up alongside him there. Oh, that's Manuel Quinziato, another one on Liqui Gas in trouble.
Just in front of them in the black and white jersey, that's Julian Dean, big sprinter from New Zealand. He also now is starting to suffer as they get up towards the top of this climb. They've probably got around about 2.5 kilometers to go to the summit. Well, you can see now that Johan van Sommeren said, right, we're going to set the tempo here for Team Silence Lotto. Popovic comes through. Popovic getting the bit between the teeth now, coming to what is the most important part of the Tour de France as far as he's concerned. But I am glad to see that there are a large number of riders from Silence Lotto, because I was a little bit concerned for Cadel Evans that he may well get isolated from his team. 81, Thor Hushovd. The sprinters now starting to suffer.
Well, that looks to me, Paul, as though it's Martin Maskant who's dropping back here to join Thor Hushovd going off the back, but they've got time to get back on if they take a few risks on the descent.
Yep, it's a long descent to Samy Dumoulin there as well, moving back, the winner of the stage, into Nantes. He too is starting to grapple with his machine. Popovic in the middle there looks very comfortable. I had to say yesterday, Phil, I thought he was starting to look a lot better than he appeared to be in the Pyrenees.
He needs to have a good Alps to help, in fact, Cadel Evans, that's for sure. And that looks a very determined face, but this man here, Johan van Summeren, we just cut off him. Absolute hero, that man. He's not a climber, but he always helps Cadel Evans. He helps anybody. He used to help Robin McEwen when he was winning stages as well. There he is, look at that face. It pulls out something special in you when you have the race leader on your team. Not so good back here. Arnaud Coyot, he was in a break. He's now at the back, 33.
There's a lot of riders now suffering, Phil. They'll be just hanging on. But just to check this descent out here.
Well, sorry, Paul. We've had the clocks on these boys, and the best we've recorded so far, 82 kilometers an hour down here.
Well, I have to tell you, the reason that we're not going that fast, because we're not going that fast, is because it's such a technical descent.
And the wind.
If they're on a descent in a straight line, they can touch over 100 kilometers an hour, 62 miles an hour. It gives you an idea, and it's actually pretty difficult if you're not wearing glasses, especially with the wind and the cold here, because your eyes start to stream and scream, and you can't actually see properly up in front of you.
Well, let's hope Danny can see, because he's currently doing 72.5 kilometers an hour as he keeps those three riders in sight. The gap at 12:24, 117 kilometers still to go. The bunch are in the last 800 meters of the ascent. Popovic doing all the pacemaking. The man Cadel Evans wanted alongside him on his team, and he got him.
Not far away from the front. In fact, in the second or third row there, I noticed Carlos Sastre. Oh, grab that, get it out of the way. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Or would it be thank you very much, coming from Fabian Cancellara?
Well, I think it's grazie in Italy, Paul. I think you were in Spain for a moment there.
Yeah, but actually we're still in France here. But don't worry about that.
You're quite right. Yes, you're quite right. We're still in France for the bunch. It's the leaders who are in Italy right now. And Cancellara taking time out to grab his cape. The strong man, though, is coming to the top, and with the peloton more or less, and he'll be a very valuable ally over the flatter roads for Team CSC.
There's Cadel Evans in the
yellow
jersey.
And there is Christian Van der Velde, looking cool.
Looking very cool. I've got a funny feeling that Christian Van der Velde, Phil, is going to enjoy the final climb of the day here, because I'm just thinking that the gradient at inside of 7% and 11 kilometers is just ideal for the kind of power that Christian Van der Velde can demolish. And got my fingers crossed for Van der Velde this afternoon, because he may well have a crack at the yellow jersey. He's looking for about 38 seconds at the start of the day.
At this stage of the climb, there's no reason for him to lead this bunch up and waste energy. He should be in the slipstream of those riders. He looks as though he's in absolutely no trouble. He doesn't need to make any effort. Cadel Evans isn't, and neither is Frank Schleck. They are waiting for the final assault of the climb of Prato Novoso. 12 minutes to gap. They're still bringing them back, you see. Even so, they're over the other side, speeding to the valley, and as Paul said, it's going to take them around 40 minutes to get off this mountain downhill.
Popovic is looking pretty scary here this afternoon, Phil, and that's a good sign, because he was signed up for an awful lot of money for one reason, and one reason only, and that was to support Cadel Evans in the mountains. The team actually didn't believe that they had enough money to be able to afford him, to bring him on board, because he's the kind of rider who's won the white jersey in the Tour de France, finished on the podium of the Giro d'Italia, but they said if Cadel is going to win, he needs to have a strong alloy. And I can tell you one thing, I think Popovic is coming to form in the Tour just at the right time.
This is Simon Gerrans talking to the team car, just asking them what's on the menu today. And he's got a couple of power bars handed out the window, and he freewheels back up to the boys. 11:57 the gap, so they are being brought back, according to the clock, towards the top of the Col Daniel.
Welcome back. Now, while we were showing you the action on the ascent of the Col Daniel, French television were having pictures with the descent of the Col Daniel. In fact, for a while, they lost pictures from the camera motorbikes completely. But there was a bad crash that we have to tell you about.
All there is a helicopter shot of it. There it is, not hugely informative. But what has happened, we understand, is that Oscar Pereiro, the 2006 Tour winner, coming round the hairpin at the top, went over the top guardrail and fell and is in there below the bottom guardrail. Has a few of his K-Stepan teammates around him, and Chris Boardman, we believe he has a broken shoulder and a broken leg.
Well, incredibly unfortunate for him. We're not surprised that these things happen from time to time. The rider's on a wet surface. They've got about 22 millimetres of rubber on the ground, and they're pushing to the edge of the envelope all of the time. So incredibly unfortunate for him. I thought he really could have done something specifically today.
All right, so Alejandro Valverde is missing a teammate, Oscar Pereiro, out of the race and in hospital. 4 men are still out front. There is just 66 kilometres left to race. They have a lead of over 17 minutes. Let's get out to live pictures with Paul Sherwin and Phil Liggett.
Well, the main field now have just managed to get themselves through the feeding station, and they're still looking to try and bridge a gap of 17 minutes to the 4 leaders who are off the front end of the main field. But the big news really is that rather sad accident that happened to the 2006 winner of the Tour de France, Oscar Pereiro. He went down on the descent. He crashed rather dramatically, and in fact went over a crash barrier and fell down 4 or 5 meters onto the road below, and has been taken away from the race in ambulance, where they are believing he may well have fractured his shoulder and quite possibly have broken his leg as well. So the 2006 winner of the Tour de France is now out of the Tour, while the race goes on and heads down towards the town of Cuneo, which is not far away from the start of the final climb of the day, the Prato Nervoso. And the climb up here to Prato Nervoso is a very difficult climb. The main field have just gone through the feeding station and have lost themselves on the day so far around about 17 minutes on a leading group of 4 riders. In fact, the race here is split up a fraction, and that's because we've just gone through the feeding station, and Team Lampre are all over the front of the main field. Now, the reason Lampre are at the front of the main field is because they want their man Damiano Cunego in with a chance of getting a crack at victory here this afternoon. And strangely enough, on the day that the race is heading into Italy, and we're currently on Italian soil, of the 4 leaders at the front of the bike race, not one of those men is from Italy. Back of the group here, just looking here at David Miller, number 198. He'll be looking after his teammate Christian van der Velde. The American rider on that Garmin Chipotle team lies in 3rd place in the overall classification. There's the yellow jersey at the front end of the main field, Cadel Evans, and I should think a little bit of panic on board there in the main field, because there's a serious split has appeared. Schumacher hasn't missed out. He's the rider in the pale blue jersey, just moving forward. But looking a little bit further back, there's a big split in the main field.
Looking down the split here, Paul, a little bit serious, because I think Frank Schleck has missed it.
Well, I don't think it's that serious. It's a split that happened going through the feeding station. It was caused by the fact that Team Lampre went through the feeding station, Phil, at maximum speed and didn't slow down at all. But it will ring alarm bells for 1 or 2 of the riders who have missed out in that split. But one man who was paying attention, of course, was Cadel Evans.
Clever man. And there's a bit of finger waving going on here. Fabien Wegman is shouting up to Bernard Cole as they drive on. And Stefan Schumacher's made the right split. Here comes the charge behind. It's going to all come back together again, but they weren't expecting this. There's Cadel Evans, got his team around him. Popovic looking after him with the dark glasses on.
Well, the important thing is that's another good reason for sitting at the front end of the main field, because the guys in the back will have had a little bit of a scare because of that split, but they will also have had to use a little bit of extra energy to pull themselves back up to the yellow jersey of Cadel Evans. And in fact, it's the men from Euskaltel-Euskadi in the orange jerseys there, unless of course that's Rabobank, because one man who will have missed out, of course, is Denny Menchov.
Menchov, Frank Schleck, I think Carlos Sastre weren't paying attention, and now they've got to do a little extra work that wasn't part of the scenario just now. The chase is helping too. 16:43. It's come back from 17:10. Cadel just getting on with having his meal while everybody else is looking after him. This is in fact Sastre at the back here.
Well, he doesn't seem to be panicking at all. I think he may well have missed out on taking on board his bag, his food bag, and which is why he's gone back to the team car to get himself topped up with some energy bars.
Frank Schleck coming back as well. So they're relying on the race to regroup, and it will, of course, but it's still a little bit of an uncomfortable riding moment for some of these riders.
Frank Schleck, red, white and blue, the champion of Luxembourg. He says he's dreaming of winning on the Alpe d'Huez, but I wonder if he's dreaming about grabbing a yellow jersey by the end of today's stage, because he's only 1 second off the overall lead of Cadel Evans, and 1 second, Phil, at the top of a mountain top finish like this is really not very much at all.
No, but if Cadel is right there, I would let Frank Schleck ride away and get the yellow jersey.
That would be the best thing, because that would confuse the tactics of Team CSC, because they would feel themselves just a little bit obliged to keep the yellow jersey.
That's beautiful, isn't it?
That's pretty impressive.
I mean, how do they do that when they're at ground level? The wheels are perfectly round.
Well, sorry to take the magic away from you,
Yes.
but the way they do that kind of stuff, it's actually done by GPS in this day and age.
Oh, how boring. You've upset me now.
I know you thought it was very artistic.
I
It's
did.
Planned out by computer and then done by GPS settings. These 4 leaders, I think if they want to start to dream about winning the stage here this afternoon, Phil, they're going to have to start the climb with a good 5 minutes lead over the front end of the main field, because they will lose time once we start the climb up to Prato Nervoso. It's a climb of around about 11 kilometers, but it's not really a very steep climb. It's an average gradient of around about 7%.
Well, we continue in the Varieta Valley. We'll shortly be leaving this valley as we head now towards the town of Vanasca, 74 kilometers to go. Speed of those cars indicating this race is beginning to pick up the tempo. As we gaze out across the Alps here to locate the race, there are 4 leaders up there. The sun is out now. It's gone up to 27 degrees Celsius. It was 10 on top of the Col d'Angel, and the breakaway is now coming back. It's still an awful long way ahead, though, and it got a maximum lead of over 17 minutes, and it's now down to just about 16 minutes. And wherever you go, there are signs saying long live the Tour de France. These are the workhorses of Damiano Cunego. The Lampre riders have been told to chase the breakdown.
Well, the town of Rossana salutes the Tour, and that's 68.5 kilometers to go for the main field. But it's 57 kilometers to go, Phil, for the leading group of 4 riders. It's certainly not one of those days, but actually, strangely enough, all of a sudden, there's a couple of riders from Team CSC have moved up to the front end of the main field. Nicky Sorensen there, the champion of Denmark, and just behind him, Stewie O'Grady. So maybe we are about to be treated to a rip-roaring chase to try and pull back the 4 leaders.
Well, this is most interesting, because we thought they might use CSC riders once the climb started to break up and try and crack Cadel Evans' Silence Lotto team, but they put men near the front already. 15:45 as they went through the sprint point there. Gerrans won there, by the way, from Australia. Danny Pate of the USA was second, and Arrieta was third. The 4 breakaways leading by 15 3/4 minutes at this point.
It's a long way to go, and they'll be gambling on the fact that they can hold on to a big chunk of their advantage. They built up their advantage to, it was actually almost 18 minutes when they got to the feeding station. Then all of a sudden Team Lampre decided, right, enough is enough. We need to get this back into the fold, because our man from Italy, the Little Prince is his nickname, Damiano Cunego, certainly wants to try and plead the Tifosi. And Phil, every time we get a chance to see the climb, it appears as if half of the population of Piemonte has turned out here to come and see the Tour de France on Italian soil.
Well, wait till you see the crowd on the finishing climb, the Prato Nervoso. It is huge, as they will come all the way up to an absolute corridor of noise today. And these 4 riders might yet be the first onto the slopes at 56 kilometers from the finish. They're only about 25 miles from the start of the climb.
Yeah, that's the difficult thing, I think, that the main field has to bargain with this afternoon. The fact is, they're running out of time to chase. I just caught sight there of Robbie McEwen. So McEwen must have made a seriously big daredevil descent, Phil, to get himself back into the main field. And CSC now are very keen to come and help out to do the pacemaking. That's Stewie O'Grady.
Well, if you're just joining us, by the way, Mark Cavendish of the United Kingdom, the 4-time stage winner of this tour, didn't start today. He's gone home to prepare for the Olympics. 2 riders who have retired is Mark Renshaw of Australia, Stein de Volder of Belgium, and we have witnessed a rather terrible crash from Oscar Pereiro, and he collided apparently with Robbie Hunter, but Pereiro came over the guardrail and dropped about 12 feet to the part of the road below which had turned underneath him, and he's gone to hospital with a suspected fractured shoulder and a broken leg, but never lost consciousness, and his life-threatening injuries are certainly not involved.
Well, that's good news, I think, for everybody who follows the sport of professional cycling. Julian Dean there in the black and white for Team Garmin Chipotle. They've got a lot of work to do this afternoon, Phil, because they've got some serious responsibility themselves. In fact, despite the fact they've got Danny Pate in that leading group of 4 riders, they've also got Christian van der Velde in 3rd place in the overall classification. And there's Christian van der Velde there, number 191.
15:22, it's coming down. It was 15:45 a few moments ago. The chase is working.
Yes, the chase is definitely working, but it's going to be a long, hard chase to try and pull back a quarter of an hour in 55 kilometres. I'm not really convinced yet that it's going to happen, unless, of course, that leading group of 4 riders starts to weaken, but they don't seem to be weakening at all just yet. This is Danny Pate.
Well, he started something today, Paul. Let's hope he can finish it off. This is the one man in the 4 who's never ridden the Tour de France before, former under-23 world champion on the road. And the other 3 are pretty experienced in the Tour de France. Look at the crowd here.
It really is phenomenal. The Italians love their cycling, that's for absolute certain. And the fact that they get a chance to see the Tour de France on Italian soil is why they've turned out in their absolute numbers. But as you've said a couple of times, it really is incredible, the number of people on this final climb of the day.
And on top of the mountain, the weather is looking better than it's looked the whole day. The sun is out, it's all looking very pleasant. Everybody, it seems, has got the stock issue of yellow today in Germany. All of the buntings are yellow. There's yellow balloons in all the villages, because we saw this last night when we drove to the finishing line. Now the jockeys have got themselves yellow tops. They've done a real good job in this part of Italy.
Yeah, I think the price of yellow T-shirts actually went up over the last couple of days. Probably
what about the umbrellas? Left. How about the umbrellas?
Brilliant.
And obviously paint as well, because they've got a bit of that too. Bit of a tight fit through the panel, through the corridor of the people here, but they're through, and the gap is at 15:15. I can't see this coming back, you know.
Personally, I can't either, even though we are getting assistance for a number of teams coming to the front end of the peloton, including Team CSC and, of course, Team Lampre. But I'm not sure they've got the firepower to reduce the deficit of a quarter of an hour. So, going around the corner, Nicky Sorensen now negotiating that corner, followed by that rider from Lampre, Stuart O'Grady in the white jersey there in 3rd position. O'Grady looking pretty good here this afternoon. These guys are probably actually just, as far as Team CSC are concerned, they're maybe not even thinking about the stage victory here this afternoon. What they've got on the back of their minds is just trying to toughen the race up for the final ascent to see whether or not they can surprise Cadel Evans and get the yellow jersey away from him. So, just looking at the main field as they meander away. They get themselves around that corner. I think really they're not chasing to catch that leading group. They're really pretty much thinking about trying to toughen the race up for the final climb. Well, the leading group of 4 riders are losing a little bit of time, but I don't think they're losing time fast enough now as they go inside at 49 kilometres to go to the finish. That should take them around about an hour and 20 minutes, because the last 11 kilometres of the climb, the race is uphill to the ski resort of Prato Nervoso. This is Egoy Martinez in the orange jersey of Euskaltel-Euskadi. Danny Pate, 199, a teammate of David Miller on the Garmin Chipotle team from the United States of America. Former under-23 world champion. Riding the Tour de France for the first time in his career, is probably wondering to himself, what am I doing here this afternoon? Simon Gerrans from Australia. He's already had a couple of wins so far. In fact, one just before the start of the Tour de France in the Route du Sud, which is in the southern... Oh, there's a crash. There's a number of riders gone down here very dramatically around this corner. All it takes is a little bit of grease on the road and they go down. They've gone down on the left-hand side and on the right. There's all kinds of riders down on the ground. It's a big crash. There's probably 20 riders gone down there. There's a couple of riders gone down from Euskaltel-Euskadi. One of the riders who's gone down there, Julian Dean, has gone down, I believe, and that's what's being announced on Race Radio. And just having a look, a couple of riders there from, looks like Alessandro Ballan, the tall rider there from Team Lampre. Rabobank Garmin Chipotle taking the wheel out, looking to see if they can fix. Van der Velde has gone down. Christian Van der Velde. Christian Van der Velde has gone down there. Damiano Cunego. No, that's not Cunego. That's number 72 went down there. And that is Alessandro Ballan over on the right-hand side of the road. So a little bit of chaos at the back end of the main field. Look how that happened. There's a rider at the front there went down, and that was one of the riders from Team Columbia. And then once you're in a situation like that, you just touch your brakes, and then a whole stack of riders go down. Just touching your brakes on a greasy surface like this, and there's nothing you can do at all. Apart from the man on the left-hand side who made the best operation there. He was looking for the easy, soft landing. So slowing down again. They're allowing most of the riders to get themselves back into the main field here. They've shut off the pacemaking a little bit at the front. Stu O'Grady looking over his shoulder. Andy Schleck, Fabian Cancellara. Just goes to show that just a little bit of dampness. Let's have a look at that one more time. You can see one rider just touching his brakes, and everybody behind panics. You hear the screeching of scraping metal, and he put the brakes on just a little bit too hard, then all of a sudden, bang, and you're down. And it was quite amazing. It was almost in stereo action because it was on both sides of that roundabout. Race radio telling me that all of the riders who went down there, in fact, have managed to get themselves up, and they're riding back at the front end of the main field. That was Damiano Cunego, so he wasn't involved in the crash. It was, in fact, his teammate Alessandro Ballan, as I'd thought. So a little bit of a slowing down now, and that should give most of the guys who crashed a chance to get themselves back into the main field. I'm pretty certain that Christian Van der Velde will get himself back into the pack quite easily. Just goes to show, Phil, that the crashes can happen either at the front or at the back of the main field, and especially when it's a little bit greasy like that, all you have to do is touch your brakes and you're down. Well,
those sort of accidents happen on the freeways in motor car crashes when you rubberneck the other side, but I've never seen it before in a Tour de France. Race radio was saying that Van der Velde was down. I must confess I couldn't see him, but either way, everybody, it seems, is okay, up and riding. And now we'll see if they come back, because it looks as though the peloton this time has applied a little bit of pressure at the front.
Well, they slowed down a fraction, I think, to allow most of the riders to get back on. It was crackled over race radio that Christian Van der Velde had gone down.
Certainly Julian Dean was down.
Definitely. I saw Dean in his black and white jersey, the champion of New Zealand. Alessandro Ballan went down. The race caption went up to say it was Damiano Cunego, but he did not go down. I saw him sitting at the front end of the main field. The Vincenzo Nibali is the leader of the best young rider competition and the best placed Italian in the overall classification. He too must have been on the ground.
Yep, he's coming back. The boys from Rabobank Orange. This is Mario Ertier, number 2. On the right-hand men of Cadel Evans, of course. And the Liquigas rider is Murilo Fischer, the Brazilian, in the lime green colours. He's back. Meanwhile, business as usual for Vincenti Garcia da Costa. He's dropped back for a lot of bottles, and I don't think he fell.
45 minutes, 14 minutes and 24 seconds. I think really the pressure being put at the front end of the main field now by Team CSC, Phil, is not to chase it down the 4 leaders. It's more to make the race tough so that we can have a serious assault of the final climb of the day.
Well, a lot of riders now believe that breakaway is going to be successful, and if they've got anything like 5 or 6 minutes at the bottom, they will not catch him. There is Cunego. You said he didn't crash, but I'm not so sure.
He doesn't look black, and he doesn't look damaged at all. A little bit of dirt.
There's a little bit of a mark there. Probably may have gone down and got up very quickly.
Yeah, but those crashes at high speed are usually, if you can have a decent crash, those are probably the best ones to have, Phil, because normally what happens is you slide rather than fall heavily.
Yeah. But it must have been oil or something on that roundabout, because the roads are perfectly dry.
Yeah. All it takes is a touching of the brakes, and the panic and the noise from the sound of scraping steel causes a lot of riders behind to apply their brakes too savagely. One man not involved in that at all is just up on the right-hand side of the main field there. You can see Cadel Evans in the yellow jersey. He's surrounded by his faithful guards at the back end of the group. This looks like Matteo Tosato. alongside Nibali. You can see that he did go down. He's got a little bit of blackness on his jersey. He's got to figure himself out. He's, I don't think he doesn't look too injured at all. He's going to go back to the race car, or is he going to go to the race doctor just to see what the situation? There's Julian Dean, so he's back up, coming up as well. 196 is Trent Lowe, young Aussie on Team Slipstream. You can see they ripped his shorts a little bit. He's got a slight injury to his elbow, but I don't think he went down too hard, and not hard enough for it to be a serious injury. 64, Murillo Fischer. So you can see here that most of the sprinters managed to get themselves back into the main field on a day when they obviously wondered what was going to happen. So the race splitting up again around one of these roundabouts. Look at all of the yellow bunting which has been prominent in nearly all of the towns we've been through here, as if everybody is celebrating the arrival and the passage of the Tour de France, the Giro di Francia, onto Italian soil. The four leaders didn't have anything to worry about at all, as they are still holding on to a massive chunk of their advantage.
43 kilometres, Borgo San Geppi, and 14 minutes the gap. They're never going to see these riders till they're in the showers tonight, that's for sure, Paul.
No, definitely. They're not going to pull back 14 minutes and 20 seconds in 43 kilometres, even though the last 11 are uphill, because the three riders in first, second, third place at the moment are very good climbers in their own right. The only man whose climbing ability I question a fraction really is Danny Pate. He's a great bike rider, I know, because he's been a world champion at the under-23 level of the sport, but I'm not sure how Danny, Phil, is going to be able to climb against the likes of Egoy Martinez, Jose Luis Arrieta, and of course the man in the green jersey there from Australia, Simon Gerrans. Just looking at the front end there, and you can see that they're all working fairly well. They know they've got probably to work, Phil, for about 30 kilometres, and then the climb will start in earnest. But unfortunately, the race organisation, in a very pleasant way, probably because the road to the bottom of the climb was too narrow, have inserted a nasty climb at about 15 kilometres before the foot of the final climb of the day, strangely enough called the Col della Morte, the climb of the death.
Well, let's hope that doesn't come to reality. Goodness me, it looks as though the King of the Mountains went as well. David Miller also went, of Garmin Chipotle. So the British cyclist went down, and we're now receiving information, in fact, that Oscar Pereiro has definitely got a broken femur, has definitely got a broken shoulder, but does not have a broken leg. So that is a little bit better news from the race director, Christian Prudhomme. Meanwhile, Nibali is now at the back of the race, waiting for the arrival of the doctor since his fall. But generally, these races have all come back together.
Well, Stewie O'Grady at the front here for Team CSC, whipping up the pace, and I'm fairly certain now this man went down very hard indeed.
Hard fall. This is Hunter.
Robbie Hunter, yep. And that will have been the crash, Phil, by the way,
yes,
involving Oscar Pereiro.
That's correct.
He looks pretty ripped up, Robbie Hunter, but he's a tough character. And
what a day.
Well, it's been a dramatic day, definitely, with the number of crashes we've had, and it's hard to believe, sitting here on the finishing line, Phil, in Prato Nervoso, it's been an absolutely fabulous day. The sun has been out for nearly all of the afternoon, and yet it's been absolute chaos out on the roads.
Well, you're beginning to see the blue sky peeping over the race now, because they're only 40 kilometres on the twisty road away. As the crow flies, they're probably only about 25 or 30 kilometres. Look at the face now. Stuart O'Grady of Australia has been getting better and better as this tour has got longer. He always comes good in the last week. He's now driving this race on. I'm still not too sure why.
Well, I think what they're doing here, Phil, is they just want to toughen the race up. They now know they're not going to catch the four leaders, so forget about that. There is still a very important battle to be played out in the men who are looking at winning this bike race overall. Throw away the stage victory now, because those four leaders are much too far in front, but we've still got to have a battle on the final slopes of the climb. So I think what they're trying to do is make the race tough over these next 30 kilometres. Stewie O'Grady then will swing off and say, OK, Carlos Sastre, Andy Schleck, it's up to you now to go out and try and attack Cadel Evans.
I've also noticed there's about 4 or 5 or even 6 riders from Team Columbia suddenly come up there too. Now they've got Kim Kirkland in 7th place. You may recall he led the race in the opening week for a few days. And maybe everybody is planning an assault up this last climb to see what comes out of it. These are the four leaders at 14 minutes and 20 seconds. They're holding their own now. Danny Pate, Arrieta wants something from the team car. Danny Pate rapidly getting that food down him.
Very important on a day like this.
Sitting on a winning break here. That's a very nice shot, isn't it?
It certainly is. And it's amazing the way they've managed to get the pictures back nice and stable. We had a lot of problems in the first part of the afternoon just because of the weather conditions, but now we're in the heart of the Piemonte region of Italy, and we're at the heart of really the tifosi of cycling here at Prato Nervoso, because there's an unbelievable crowd have turned out to welcome the Tour de France. But they're going to welcome 4 riders, I think, Phil, to the start of the climb, none of which represent Italy.
Absolutely right.
O'Grady, Nicky Sorensen, first and second, whipping up the pacemaking, just trying to make it a little bit tougher before they get to the foot of the climb. They want the bodies to be nice and hot. Italian flag is very prominent along the way here, but also is the yellow jerseys and the yellow bunting on all of the little towns here. Just sitting at the back there, 151, is Eric Zabel having a quick chat with Alessandro Ballan, who went down quite heavily. Bernard Cole moving up on the right-hand side, over to the left-hand side. Jens Voigt, I wonder when he'll be called to come to the front end of the main field. O'Grady swinging off now, and he moves back into second place. So they're obviously very keen, Team CSC, Phil, to keep a little bit of pressure on in the front end of the main field, because I'm absolutely certain that the man just behind, in fact not riding too far away from Cadel Evans, Frank Schleck, will have a try today to try and get himself that 1 second back.
Well, Cadel has ridden a great race today. He's never taken himself too far away from the front. Only early on, when he clearly felt the race was going to do nothing on the Col Daniel, he stayed midway down the field. But ever since the going has got a bit precarious, he's always been at the front of the race. This looks like it might be Eric Zabel here.
Yep, it is Eric Zabel, 38 years of age just the other day. And he's
again, he avoided the crashes. He always does.
Yeah, he's a clever bike rider, Eric Zabel. Always got the form from the beginning of the season right through to the very end of the year. I wouldn't be looking over my shoulder like that. He's on the wheel here of big George Hincapie. Hincapie at the back end of the group. I think they're probably just waiting for the team management to come forward to take on board drinks and water. While if you look at the main field, they really are charging along at a fairly good pace, around about 48, 49 kilometers an hour. While the leading group of riders here, Phil, are averaging still a good 45 kilometers an hour, and that's an indication that they're not going to pull them back. They are, in fact, holding on to a good chunk of their advantage at 14.5 minutes.
Well, it will have been an almost race-long break. They got away about 9 kilometers into the day of 183. 37 still to ride, and then we've got the small third category, and then the final first category climb up to the finish. As always, the people here will have seen these 4 musketeers, having been on the front all of the way. They can expect a huge welcome on top at Prato Nervoso. The peloton, Cadel Evans always using a teammate to sit behind. He never goes to the front, but look at that, riding the 4th wheel and keeping his nose clean and out of trouble, and also in a position to anybody who attacks, he'll see them go by, and he should be able to go after them.
There's the chaos of the main field. A lot of the guys in this main field, Phil, are fairly happy that they managed to catch back up to the main field on the descent of that climb, because a lot of sprinters were left behind, especially when we got to the tough part of the climb up towards the summit of the Col Daniel.
Leonardo Duque, the Colombian sprinter, wants service at the back there.
O'Grady, Nicky Sorensen coming up on the right-hand side there. It looks like Gustav. Passing the drinks out to the guys. Keep the pace up, keep it nice and hard, because our leaders this afternoon want to have a good crack at trying to dislodge Cadel Evans from the top spot in the race. In fact, the leading group of 4 have stretched it out a fraction. Sad news, I suppose, for Great Britain is the fact that Mark Cavendish, the man who's won himself 4 stages in the Tour de France this year, has not started. He was getting just a little bit too tired. He'd won himself 4 stages, and with the Alps rapidly approaching, and on the other side of the Alps, the Beijing Olympics, I think he decided this morning to pack his bags and head back to the United Kingdom. It's a different kind of event that he will be riding in the Olympic Games. He's going to be riding on the track in a discipline called the Madison. And so as far as he's concerned, it's probably better to leave the Alps out of his agenda for this year. But I'm sure he will come back next season, and he'll be looking at trying to get a crack at winning the race for the points classification. That's Serge Boucherie in the team car there, and I notice he looked as if he's had a little bit of an injury too. Tête de la course, and again that little bit of problem there because of the fact that the riders have a very slight thin lubricant on their chains on a day like this, and with the weather being quite as bad as it has been, it's dried out a lot of the chains. You might just have noticed there on Serge Boucherie's broken wrist there, he's got a little message that says "Recherchons sponsor, urgent." I'm looking for a new sponsor urgently. Yes, well, Crédit Agricole theoretically do not have a sponsor for the end of this year. The sponsorship has run its course, and they're looking to try and bring a new sponsor in to keep them out on the road. The main field now looking at around about 40 kilometers to go for the main field as we go through here the Madonna del Olmo. Just at the back, Andy Schleck, number 16. It looks like he's going to the back to do a little bit of work for the team. Carlos Sastre, number 11, he'd been back and taken on board drinks for the rest of the team. I wonder if Carlos Sastre is feeling all of that well this afternoon, or if he just wasn't too concerned about picking up bottles as he rode back into the main field.
We're looking at the Garmin Chipotle car up with Danny Pate, number 199. These four leaders are on the winning performance today. It's a question of which one will win and who will take the yellow jersey behind.
Yep, it's going to be very difficult. It's a tough call here because three of these riders in the break are very good climbers. Simon Gerrans has had 2 victories so far this year, and in fact he's the only man in the breakaway to have victories. The other 2 riders with him, though, are very experienced climbers. The man in the orange there, Egoy Martinez, a great climber, formerly a great domestique alongside Lance Armstrong on Team Discovery Channel. Jose Luis Arrieta, formerly a teammate of Simon Gerrans, but himself a good climber, having won a stage of the Tour of Spain a couple of years ago. The main field stretching out into a big long line, and I think the only reason that we're seeing the work being done by Team CSC is to try and set something up a little bit later on, and maybe for an increase of pace from either Frank Schleck or Carlos Sastre. Number 72 at the back there, that's Alessandro Ballan. He crashed dramatically a little while back when around about 25 riders went down as they entered into a roundabout a little while ago. There at the front, I can just see the yellow jersey there of Cadel Evans, and nice and comfortable, while surrounding the main field, because this is Silence Lotto with Robbie McEwen at the back. O'Grady hurting himself, and he knows that he's got to hurt himself for about another 20 kilometers, because once they get to the foot of the climb, I'm pretty certain that Stewie will use discretion as the better part of valor and pull off, and then leave it up to the men who are reputedly the climbers of the team. And it's interesting, the tactic currently of Team CSC, because they're only using 2 riders, still keeping in reserve riders like Fabian Cancellara and Jens Voigt. Scrabbling up the outside there, that's his Dario Cioni. He's a former mountain biker, born in Reading in the United Kingdom, and he's moving up the outside to take on board drinks for the men at the front, because those guys from Team Silence Lotto at the front end of the main field are not going to relinquish their places at the front end of the peloton. They want to keep it nice and high, and they don't want to slip back. So one rider goes back to take on board drinks. Long line of the main field, and almost everybody involved in that crash has got themselves back into the main field, but a lot of riders went down in that crash a little while back. In fact, nearly all of the Garmin Chipotle team went down, including Trent Lowe, Julian Dean, and we do believe that Christian van der Velde went down, and he's the man that started the day in 3rd place in the overall classification. Just looking at the faces of all these riders. Look at the face now on Nicky Sorensen. He's really digging deep. He's really hurting his body. He knows he's got around about half an hour of pacemaking on the front end of the main field like this. Johan van Sommeren sitting just behind them. They don't care at all, these guys from Silence Lotto, because they can feel the challenge coming. Now then, Now this is Jens Voigt. Now Jens has been cut up quite a bit there. And I presume he must have gone down in that crash a little earlier on, and that's a little bit of sad news. He's got his radio off there, and I think it could well be because he's changed his jersey and suffering a little bit from his knee. Been a lot of crashes on the race this afternoon. 14 minutes and 44 seconds. Despite the work being done on the front end of the main field by CSC, it's doing nothing at all to affect the front end of the main field. You almost feel the pain that Stuart O'Grady's going through, can't you, when you look into his eyes there. 5th position for Cadel Evans, making sure that if there are any more accidents or incidents on the road, that he's not going to be involved in them or delayed by them. He will try and ride at the front end of the main field as long as he can, and I think today he's going to hope that Jaroslav Popovic can stay up with him as long as possible on the slopes of the climb. There we're going. We've gone through the town of Cuneo. This is the plains of Cuneo, right in the very heart of the Piemonte region of Italy. As you can see there, it's coming up to 10 to 5 in the afternoon local time for the main field. The leading group of 4 as they go through 28 kilometers to go. This is the small town of Chiusa de Pezio in the Pezio Valley. And this part of the world, in fact, they used to make a lot of glass and crystal in years gone by, and not too far away from where the riders just went, there in fact is a glass and crystal museum. And that is an indication that probably in about 1.5 kilometers they should be looking at the start of the climb of the Colle della Morte. 14.5 minutes is their advantage. Danny Pate in the white jersey, just on the far side now. These riders have got to start to figure out, especially the 3 riders there in the orange, the green and the blue and white jersey, which one of them has got the strength to win the stage. I'd like to think that Simon Gerrans has. He's been the most successful rider in the breakaway this year with 2 victories. One in March in the very difficult race of the Criterium International, and another one in June in the Route du Sud, which was just before the race. Well, that's the profile of the stage. You can see the big lump that we've been over there. We're now just starting the Colle della Morte.
This is the hors d'oeuvre, Paul, as our cameras shoot up and look out. I'm not sure, I don't think that is where we're sitting, because looking out my window I can't see the cloud bank around it. But that certainly is in the area of where the riders will eventually go today. We just started the 3rd category climb.
The Colle del Morte, which is where the 4 leaders are, but certainly you can see we're heading right into the clouds. We're not too far away from where the cloud cover is. The cloud is actually up above us. The riders of the main field going through that town there of San Lorenzo, and they are at 38 kilometers to go, Phil, while these guys are still almost 10 kilometers up the road. Danny Pate, I'm not sure what the team management would say to him in a situation like this, but I would think from the top of this climb to the finish climb, he now needs to start to think about trying to conserve a little bit of energy.
Well, Jonathan Waters has said that Danny Pate always looks tired, so he never takes any solace about how he looks. He just doesn't know. He knows he's up against 3 climbers, and this is their terrain. And it's because of these 3 climbers that they've kept such a big lead today. Now it's up to Danny. He's not showing signs of weakness right now, is he?
No, not at all. You can never take away from the fact that the young man there in the middle in the blue and white jersey from Team Garmin Chipotle, Phil, has been a world champion. The world champion at the under-23 level of the sport, but still, you've got to be a top man to win a world title. And he's got the pride to try and pull himself inside out to stay in contact with these riders. But as you say, the 3 other riders, Gerrans on the front, Jose Luis Arrieta in 2nd, and Egoy Martinez in 3rd. They are really seriously good climbers, Phil.
They are, and I know that all of Australia will root for Simon Gerrans. He's a very nice guy, and he's won all of Australia's big races, but he's never won a stage of the Tour de France, and he's got his shot today because the whole team that Gerrans rides for, Crédit Agricole, a French setup, has been built around Thor Hushovd to win the green sprinters jersey. Well, Thor's, I think, lost that jersey, slipped too far down. So now there might be a consolation prize on the way for them today.
Well, so far over the last 10 minutes or so of the race, the workload really, Phil, has been pretty much equally shared. Egoy Martinez, 24%, Gerrans, 25%. Danny Pate a fraction less at 23%, but you can't really complain too much, I don't think, about that.
No, he's the least experienced. And cool pedaling here from Igor Martinez. The Basque team rather let the side down in front of their Spanish supporters when we were in the Pyrenees, so maybe they'll go to the chagrin of the Italian supporters here, as the Spanish in the breakaway looking very strong at the moment, these two.
A little funny, little earlier on I just noticed Serge Boucherie in the team car of Crédit Agricole with a splint on his arm. He's actually broken his wrist in an accident. I'm not sure exactly how the accident happened, but there was a message on the splint which said "Cherchons sponsor avec urgence." And that's another thing we need to remember about Simon Gerrans. He needs to look for the victory here this afternoon, because in fact Crédit Agricole at the end of this year, their sponsorship ends, and they're currently still in negotiations to try and bring a new sponsor on board.
Yes, Roger has promised to reply by the 1st of August on that issue. Some people think he's got one and saying nothing, but we don't know. These are the 4 riders on the Col del Mort. 14 minutes 23. I'll take my hat off to them. They've lost nothing of the lead here, and the field were really chasing. They've made nil impression on that breakaway. Another roundabout. I begin to fear every time I look at this picture now. I expect to see 2 piles of riders lying in the road.
Well, every time I see a roundabout like that, I think we've just switched back to a replay, and I'm waiting to see the riders fall down again. There's Jaroslav Popovic in the dark glasses there for Team Silence Lotto. He's a real experienced bike rider, you know. He's a man that many people felt that one day he could win the Tour de France or even the Giro d'Italia. He's been bought into Silence Lotto for only one thing, and that's this month, and that's to look after Cadel Evans on especially days like today, on the final climb here up to Prato Nervoso.
And we should be in the sun all the way now. Just look again at the crowd here in Italy as we climb this small 3rd category hill. And it looks like Arrieta is just accelerated a little bit. Igor Martinez will go after him. They're racing for the prize on the top. You can't allow a gap to open now because they won't wait for you. So Danny Pate needs to bury himself and hold on. Martinez has moved over and allowed Arrieta to win that, because Martinez got the other one, I think. Gentlemanly act. And 3rd place is Gerrans, and 4th is Danny Pate.
Well, what's interesting, Phil, is looking at all of those 4 riders, not one of them really is showing any signs of fatigue currently. They're all pedaling very fluently.
They are. This is going to be a big battle up the final climb.
Yes, it will. There you can see the main field, and we're still looking at pretty much close to a quarter of an hour deficit for the leading group of 4 riders. Now that they've gone over the Colle della Morte, the riders will drop down into the small town of Roccaforte Mondovi, and there they will then ride along the valley floor, Phil, for a little while, maybe about I'll make it around about 10 kilometers, and then they'll start the final climb of the day, where you can see at the front end of the main field these guys, despite the fact that they're 14.5 minutes behind, there's a lot of heads rocking in there, a lot of shoulders rocking. There's a lot of tired men today.
Yeah, but a lot of guys outside the doctor's surgery tomorrow, having seen so many riders with holes in the shorts, bleeding from the arms. Jens Voigt had a fall as well. There's quite a few knocked around after those shunts. In fact, I found out, Paul, all of the Garmin Chipotle team were down in that crash, all 8.
Well, it's always good to enhance team spirit, I suppose, if everybody goes down on the ground at the same time. And I wonder if they were all uninjured, because that's the important thing for Christian van der Velde, because van der Velde, currently in 3rd place in the overall standings, I reckon is a good, serious outsider to have a crack today.
Well, he's going to try, but they feel as though they're going to have to wait and see just what Cadel Evans does here. And Cadel Evans will probably wait to see just what Frank Schleck does. So it's going to be a most interesting climb from the peloton, even after the day has been won by those 4 riders, because at 14:26 and 15 miles or 24 kilometers to go, there's no way now they're coming back. And it's going to be a good battle. We've got 2 races today, 2 very distinct races.
Yes, definitely 2 races. The race for the win of the stage, which itself is very prestigious for the 4 riders off the front end of the main field. And then 13 kilometers away for the leading group of 4. But also, there will be a battle for supremacy in the yellow jersey competition. The funny thing is that those 4 leaders, Phil, the closest one is Igor Martinez, and he's more than 50 minutes behind Cadel Evans in the overall standings. And that's why they're not too concerned about the position of the 4 leaders.
Just look at the effort being put in here by Stuart O'Grady and Nicky Sorensen just behind. They are really trying to stretch this field and hurt the main bunch.
Well, they are, but what they're doing is they're only using 2 riders on the squad, which means they can keep a number of riders in reserve. So that tells me that they are actually planning something, Phil, for this climb. I think that Team CSC will race on every one of these mountain stages.
Watch out on the next little climb, the third cat stepping stone to the next climb and the last climb of the day, because they're always going to hit that very fast. Not so far away from that at the moment, 14:12. Just shows you how fast that breakaway is going, unless our clock stopped, because they're hardly getting any closer. Here we are up with the leaders now. This is Simon Gerrans, team tip coming from the car.
Quick chat with the team manager. I was trying to see just exactly who was driving the team car there, because the second team manager, Serge Boucherie, can't drive with a broken wrist. As you look at the main field, Le Peloton coursing their way through the valley here around Cuneo. I'm wondering how they managed to let those guys get off the front end of the main field. Arrieta, Martinez and Gerrans were the riders over the top end of the main field, with Danny Pate getting himself 4th position there and a single point. Evans, 7th position in the yellow jersey. He knows that he will get challenged on the slopes of this climb, the kind of a climb that is going to suit riders like the powerhouse from Spain, Alejandro Valverde. Denny Menchov is also the kind of rider who, with his strength, may well enjoy the possibility of attacking on the slopes of a climb like this, while we rejoin the leading riders here. This is the town that they're coming through now, Roccaforte Mondovi, and we're now looking at 11 kilometers to go to the start of the final climb of the day. There's an interesting church in here, the Church of San Maurizio, which dates back to the 16th century. There used to be a big stronghold here which protected the entrance into the valley that we're about to go into, up to the summit here of Prato Nevoso. And you can see Martinez had a crash too.
Looking down from the helicopter, they're on the 3rd category climb, but they're way too far behind the leaders. The leaders will win the day, but it does look as though CSC has a plan here. That's Kurt Attel Arvesen, a stage winner, but more primarily a rider on Team CSC, is setting the pace.
Yep, they're all moving up to the front. Look out for the green jersey there, because our friend Oscar Ferreira, Phil, is not far away from the front end of the main field. Kurt Attel Arvesen looked at Robbie McEwen slipping off the back end of the main field. It's starting to get a little bit grippy now for the sprinters once again. And it's going to be a question of survival for many men, as all they can do is just hope to get to the finish line, Phil, inside of the elimination times.
Robbie will go back to Stuart O'Grady, Bernard Eisel, and the riders who have been dropped now. Arvesen is setting the pace. Cancellara is on the right. It looks as though we've got all of CSC trying to break in here. They've got 2 potential Tour winners, and they know it. They've got Carlos Sastre and Frank Schleck, and they're going to hurt Cadel Evans at every opportunity. The thing is, Paul, Cadel is ready and expects this to happen.
He's expecting something, and I think he will expect something, Phil, on every day of the Alpine passes when we go into them from Team CSC. But what he may not well be expecting is a secret attack that might come from Denny Menchov. Menchov is in 5th place overall at the start of the day, and a lot of people think that man is the silent killer. They think he's the man who could come out of the wings and do something very special here this afternoon. And I have to say, it's the kind of finish that would suit a man like Denny Menchov.
Well, CSC have put their cards firmly on the table here. Of the 6 riders in that line, 5 are on Team CSC. Just the one rider from Lotto trying to break it up, and it's Popovic.
Well, just looking down at the hill there, you can see that the damage is being done. That's the front end of the main field, but look at these riders being tailed off one by one, group by group. These are the big men. These are the men who do not like going uphill at all.
There is the split. Even Fabien Weckman in the white jersey is here. This is the tempo riding by Arvesen, reducing the Tour de France in half, creeping up on the left now. It looks like Leon Sanchez of Case Depon, so he's bringing his riders up. Sadly today they've lost Oscar Pereira rather, with a broken shoulder.
Well, the orange jersey there on the shoulder of the yellow jersey of Cadel Evans is Denny Menchov. He's moving up to keep a very close eye on affairs. And the last time, in fact, the Giro d'Italia came up here, Phil, in the year 2000. On that occasion, the first man to the top of the climb here was Francesco Casagrande, who outsprinted Stefano Garzelli and Gilberto Simoni.
Climbers all.
That gives you an indication of just how difficult this climb is going to be. And I'm sure Cadel Evans knows that. Just slipping backwards, Dario Cioni.
Yes, that will be. In fact, this morning, Cadel was saying he was hoping that Dario would have a better day today, but he's gone before the climb.
And that's why I think CSC are all over the front end of the main field. This man here, Kurt Adler Arvidsson, is now going to do exactly what Stuart O'Grady did, exactly what Nicky Sorensen did. He's going to sacrifice himself, Phil, over the flat part of this course. This race, the 4 leaders, is pretty much over. They're 4 kilometres now from the bottom of the climb.
12:45 at the top of the Mort.
There's the banner indicating 15 kilometres to go. 15 kilometres to go to the summit, but 4 kilometres to go to the bottom of the climb. And still these guys are holding on to a huge chunk of their advantage. They're not concerned at all, I don't think, now by the return of the main field behind, because these men are good climbers. And I still think, looking at the way they're pedaling here, they've got enough time in hand to survive any onslaught. They won't conserve 12 minutes at the top of the climb, that's for absolute certain, because we're going to have a great battle on the climb up to Prato Nervoso, but they should hold enough to stay out in front for the victory, and in fact stay out in front for the first 4 places.
Well, they've tipped over the top now, and the pressure is staying on here as they race away. The bunch has got 25 kilometres more or less to go. There's the banner indeed. CSC, and now it's the big world time trial champion. He paved the way to Otakam on the early parts of the Col de Tourmalet. Then he dropped off on the climb of Otakam. Now Cancellara is doing it again. 12:36 at the moment. This is Igor Martinez. It will be very difficult to say which one of these 4 will win.
It's hard to put your money on any of these riders, and even you can't, I don't think, really discount Danny Patefield, because as we said a little earlier, he's been a world champion. He's not a great climber, but this kind of climb, if you've got a little bit of strength left in the legs after a breakaway like this, he could stay in contact. But I wonder if the first man to move will be Igor Martinez, because he is a great champion who for many years rode alongside Lance Armstrong on Team Discovery Channel.
Well, either way, these 4 boys are riding a very fast tempo here right now. Underneath the buntings here, this is the base town. Now we're heading up towards the ski station of Prato Nervoso. And the sun is out, and it looks like it's going to be a clear climb for the 4 leaders who go onto the slopes of the last day with a lead of just 12 minutes.
I thought for a moment there you were going to say the sun is out, the sky is blue, and we're about to have a pretty impressive charge of the Light Brigade up the climb here. There is the start of the climb, 11.4 kilometres to the summit. The 4 leaders are still holding on to an 11-minute and 20-second advantage, and we're right at the start of the final climb of the day. But which man is the freshest of this leading group of 4? Only one man. It's a shame, really, Phil, after a 4-man breakaway like this, that only one man can actually win the stage.
Always the old scenario. 2 Spanish riders, an Australian and an American. And the whole of Team CSC not trying to catch them, but trying to break Cadel Evans.
Kurt Adler Arvidsson, champion of Norway, right on the front. Behind him is the man from Switzerland, Fabian Cancellara. A little bit further back, you can see Jens Voigt really toughening up this race. While we start the early slopes of the climb now, Igor Martinez is quite happy to set the pace making. He wants to ride at his own pace, but who's going to make a move? I have to say, in 3rd place there, he looks very comfortable, the Aussie, in the green and white jersey of Crédit Agricole, Simon Gerrans. Nobody for the moment. Looks as if they're showing any sign of weakness. Martinez pulls off, looks across. He's looking to see if he can see any signs on the face of Jose Luis Arrieta in the blue and white for AG2R. Pate taking up 4th position. Quick confirmation of the gap. 11 minutes to the main field. Don't worry about that, guys. I don't think anybody in this breakaway is going to lose a minute for every kilometre of the ascent, because the first 3 riders in this group now are all very good climbers. Danny Pate's got it down to a very nice gear. He's just twiddling the gears over, keeping it nice and supple. whereas behind there is a battle. There's a huge battle going on now. Fabian Cancellara, this is going to dish out a whole load of pain, and once Jens Voigt in second position comes to the front, that'll be pain times 2. Right up there, Johan van Sommeren in front of the man who wears number 1, Cadel Evans. Behind him, Jaroslav Popovic. A little bit further back, there is the champion of Spain, Alejandro Valverde. On his shoulder is Luis Leon Sanchez, back up to the 4 leaders. Simon Gerrans drops back into 4th place, but I think this is just to have a quick look, see what the guy's legs look like, see if he can see anybody showing signs of weakness, and wondering how he's going to plan his assault on this final 10 kilometers of the race. So there is the indicator, 10 kilometers to go. 10 kilometers to go, 10 minutes and 46 seconds, and still nobody's shown any signs of weakness or any signs of wanting to attack. Arrieta at the back, Gerrans in 3rd position, Danny Pate moving up into 1st, Egoy Martinez in the orange jersey. No sign of weakness for any one of these riders now. I cannot pick a winner.
Looking at these 4 riders, Paul, they might wait a little bit because it's 6 miles still to climb, or nearly 10 kilometers, but it gets harder as we get higher.
Well, just looking at the riders, Phil, I was thinking, I wonder which one is going to make the move first, while behind, this is a massive battle here. Cancellara, Jens Voigt, Gustav, a little bit further back, Andy Schleck. So I think Andy Schleck sacrificing himself for the team here this afternoon. 5th in the line there is Carlos Sastre. A little bit further back in the middle of the riders there in the red, white and blue is Frank Schleck. Cadel Evans looks pretty comfortable. This is an unbelievable team. They've been phenomenal, and I want a lot of them, riders like Jens Voigt, he must have had to bite his lip for many, many days, because he's the kind of guy, he likes to attack in a bike race. He wants to go off the front. He's had to be patient. He's waited, Phil, for 15 days.
I think he's as strong as we've ever seen him, Jens Voigt. We saw him ride like this on Otakam. Now we're seeing it again here on the first day of 3 in the Alps, broken by a rest day tomorrow in Cuneo. He's been on the floor today, Jens, as well, so he must be pretty sore too. These are the 4 riders again showing now. Danny Pate is dodging back wheels here, so maybe he's feeling a little bit tired right now. He's got to hang on. The pressure is on at 9 kilometers to go.
At 7.5 kilometers to go now, Egoy Martinez, a former teammate of Lance Armstrong, has tried to split this leading group of 4, but one man has resisted the first attack, and that is Danny Pate of the United States of America and Garmin Chipotle. He's pulled himself back up to the Spaniard. They caught out for a little while Simon Gerrans there in the green jersey, and I have to say Gerrans is slowly dragging himself back into this race.
Now the question is, Paul, Simon Gerrans is going to have to kick back. I think Arrieta has gone here, but it looks on this occasion Simon will climb back up to the 2 pacemakers.
Climbing back up, I think he's clawing his way back up to these 2 men at the front of the race. I'm impressed with Danny Pate. You know, a little earlier we were talking about Danny Pate, Phil, and we mentioned that he'd been a former world champion at the under-23 level of the sport. Well, when you've been a world champion, it's a special tag that you've got on your back, and that's why I think he's pulled himself up here. He wants to win a stage of the Tour. Now, this is Schleck's turn.
Let's not forget the other part of the Tour de France, because this is Andy Schleck here setting the pace with Carlos Sastre, and now there are only 2 riders in front of Cadel Evans from that team, and Cadel does not look stressed at all. This is Jens Voigt, job done. And just how small is that leading group now? And the Maillot Jaune is riding like a leader just at this moment.
He's just sitting there, just keeping his eye on the men in front of him. He's keeping his eye on number 11. That's the rider second in the line there, and that rider just happens to be Carlos Sastre. Jaroslav Popovic flicking his wrist there. He has to stay with Cadel for as long as possible. Behind him is the big Russian rider in the orange jersey, Denny Menchov.
But that was why he flicked his wrist. He wanted to move out, and he gave the signal to Denny Menchov. I'm not sure that Popo is going quite that well, although he's got onto the back there. Watch out for the rider with the red top. That's Frank Schleck. 1 second behind Cadel Evans. Cadel is just hanging on to these 2 riders here. 10 kilometers to go, and Martinez has gone again further up the road. Oh, sorry.
10 kilometers to go.
Wrong end of the field. Sorry. That was somebody going off. Probably Samuel Sanchez here. Another shed as the riders at the front all stay together.
Well, as you can see now, this has become, Phil, a very select group. Just watch out there for Frank Schleck, because Frank Schleck is looking just a little bit dangerous there, and he's the man I think may well be thinking about moving up onto the acceleration. But Christian van der Velde is in the group. He's also sitting quite pretty.
Prado Novoso, 11.4 kilometres. We go to 1,440. It's 6.9%. Cadel Evans has just followed the wheels of a team which has lost their drivers one by one. The only man they're interested to, really, is Sastre and Schleck, and they are both waiting for the moment. They will attack, but they've got to wait till all of their team drop off. The other rider in here who's impressive is Vladimir Efimkin. With the disqualification of Rico, he has a stage win to his name now.
Now Andy Schleck has kept the pressure on a fraction there, and now we can see what's happening at the back end of the group here. There's still riders getting tailed off one by one. That's
a good ride by Johan Schopp, but he's gone now. As we go further up, Jerome Pino is still there. But this is a race now of strongmen. Now what? There's the attack by Sastre. Cadel Evans has to answer that one, but no need to panic. Sastre is a long way behind for the moment. Bernard Cole as well. This is a decisive move. The yellow jersey is still looking strong.
Well, the yellow jersey is looking strong, but he's not the one who's chasing them down. In fact, the pressure is coming on the front there, Phil, by the man from Russia, Denny Menchov.
Good for Cadel.
Right
Others
up there.
have got a race 2 in this event.
Others got to race 2 in this event, but it just goes to show that Team CSC are going to do everything. Bernard Cole has grappled onto the back wheel of the Spanish rider there, and Van der Velde is still in contact.
Well, Bernard Cole on the right in the light blue is the new leader in the King of the Mountains for sure now. He'll get double points up here on the top for the first few riders over. Well, that was the first card played by Sastre when he's come to the attacks from their stars, and that has cracked David Arroyo.
Well, I tell you what, that was a very well laid plan by Team CSC. Again, you can see the move coming by Carlos Sastre, and again, it's Denny Menchov coming.
I'm a bit surprised to see Sastre try this on a hill which is not that steep, but now look at Denny Menchov here. Cadel Evans can't afford to let the gap open. He's across the gap like a rabbit, and that is another cracked rider from the team there. That's Andy Schleck.
And moving up there in 4th position, you can see Alejandro Valverde. Frank Schleck, Phil, is just sitting back there, waiting for his turn to move. He's watching the aggression. Don't forget, Frank Schleck in the red, white and blue there is only looking for a single second.
And let's not forget Alejandro Valverde there in the black. The rider who had such a rough ride in the Pyrenees may be coming back in the Alps. He's right there now. He looks across at Frank Schleck. Cadel Evans looks across at them both and goes back into the slipstream. He's the leader of the Tour de France. It's up to the others to attack him. And on the left there is the new leader in the King of the Mountains, Cole, and Christian van der Velde still there. No teammates on his side with him.
Well, this kind of climb suits the big man from Spain there on the left-hand side, wearing number 31. That is Alejandro Valverde. Van der Velde back in contact. Moving up as well there, one of the riders from Euskaltel, that's Sammy Sanchez, who was in a little bit of difficulty, but he's recovered. Further up the road, though, here, Phil, you can see...
Pate again, got back to him.
He's come back to the leader, Egoy Martinez, and Simon Gerrans will not give up. He's around about 10 lengths off the back of that group, but he's still dreaming of a stage victory.
Well, just coming back here is Andy Schleck has rejoined with a fine effort. This young man has got back on. Brother Frank is in 2nd position on the wheel of Valverde. Sanchez has shot over to the right. A while up there, Cadel Evans is just marking his men. He's not made a single attack, and that's the way he must ride this. If they sense he's vulnerable, they'll all hit him.
Well, he's got to control, and that's the important thing. You have to control in a situation like this. I don't think Cadel really has to make a move himself until he probably gets to the steep climb of the Alpe d'Huez. But now, coming back, 3 riders from CSC in this group. Carlos Sastre, Phil, has attacked on a climb which really doesn't suit him, and I wouldn't be surprised to see another move coming from Team CSC in a little bit. Sammy Sanchez now says, you guys can watch each other, I'm going to take off.
Well, he's got a chance, but it doesn't look as though they're going to let him go, because Frank Schleck has lifted up the pace here. Cole is still there, and Cadel won't move. Samuel Sanchez is not a worry just yet. Watch out, Sastre's moving on the right.
Sanchez concentrating, not worried about the other guys. He's trying to move up in the overall standings. He's lost himself a little bit of time since the start of the Tour, but he started the day in 11th place overall. He's looking for 4 minutes and 26 seconds, and if they let him go, he could very easily pull back a minute on a stage like this.
And that will help to make it look a bit more respectable. They won't react just yet, because he's caused a little bit of a diversion here, Samuel Sanchez, for Euskaltel Euskadi. And looking over the back there. Meanwhile, let's go back to the front, because here is the return of the Australian. Simon Gerrans is back with the two leaders. One American, one Australian and one Spanish rider drive towards the top of an Italian outpost called Prato Nervoso. No Italian. Sanchez is slowly but surely going nowhere.
Well, Sanchez is trying to go again, but now with 3 riders from Team CSC in that group behind Phil, I have a feeling that Andy Schleck is going to sacrifice himself for Frank Schleck in the group Maillot Jaune. Third position there is Bernard Cole. Cadel Evans looks fine this afternoon. He's responded to all of the attacks so far. Van der Velde is the man sitting second from the back of the group. Alongside him is Carlos Sastre.
9 riders at the front in today's main field of the Tour de France. Not all of the top 10 riders are here. Sanchez could well improve a couple of places tonight, whatever happens, as we head up to 5 kilometers to go. 3 of the 4 remain together. Martinez has tried twice to get away from these riders. Twice they've hauled him back. He may not have a third in him.
Well, I'm not sure that he does, and I tell you what, I take my hat off very sincerely to number 199, Danny Pate, who doesn't have the reputation of a climber like Simon Gerrans or Igor Martinez, but he's responded and he's present and correct all of the time. This now is the yellow jersey group. These are pretty much the heads of state of the Tour de France this year. Sammy Sanchez is slipping backwards.
He's back in the group, so we're now 10 as he goes to back. Carlos Sastre doesn't look so good anymore now. Frank Schleck is being set up by his brother at the front of the race to launch him perhaps for the finishing line. Remember, a second is a blink of the eyelid. That's all it is to steal the yellow jersey.
I was trying to pick up who the rider was from Liquigas. It's Roman Kreuziger, the rider who won the Tour of Switzerland earlier this year, and he's now moved himself up to the heads of state. Yes, you're right. I think Carlos Sastre has hit them very hard on a couple of occasions, and now he's been put into the red zone for a while. He needs to get himself sorted out if he wants to think about trying to attack again.
Just look at the acceleration there as we came to a halt with our picture of Alejandro Valverde. He looks across at Bernard Cole, who's turning out to be something of a revelation in this year's Tour de France in that blue jersey. Andy Schleck setting tempo now, trying to get Frank a little bit of a chance to recover. So too his other teammate, Carlos Sastre. So he's got to set the pace. Sanchez has found his legs again, and he comes up alongside Christian Van der Velde, who is content at this moment to follow wheels. And I do not believe that Van der Velde is in any trouble at all. He might well go near the end.
A little bit further down the slope here. This is the man that the majority of the Italian crowds will be shouting for, Damiano Cunego. I've absolutely no idea where he is currently, but the fact that he's alongside Sandy Cassar would indicate that he's maybe not at the front end of the race.
They've been split on the climb. They're in the second big peloton of the Tour de France right now.
Kirken.
Yes, and he's losing ground. This is not good for Kim Kirken. He started the day 7th overall. The former yellow jersey is under pressure at the back. He may be losing a few places today.
Danny Pate has decided he doesn't want to be subjected to the pacemaking of the 2 climbers now, so he's felt that the best thing for him to do is come up and set the pacemaking himself. And when you're not maybe the best climber in the group, that's sometimes the best thing to do, because you can set a pace which is comfortable for yourself.
Well, one thing's for sure, Alejandro Valverde has shed all of his problems to the Pyrenees. He's back in the race in the Alps here. I'm not sure he can make up time lost, but he can take stages. Look at the face of young Andy Schleck. This is for brother Frank. He's just riding till he drops.
Well, he's setting a massive big tempo for Team CSC. They really are a phenomenal team. I'm a bit concerned, Phil, about Carlos Sastre sitting second from the back of that group, because despite the 2 magical attacks he put in, he now seems to be in a little bit of difficulty. 3 riders at 4 kilometers to go. Martinez, Danny Pate and Simon Gerrans, and still you cannot really pick a winner.
The Group Maillot Jaune have halved the deficit, 7:30. They won't get them, though. At 4 kilometers to go, they won't be that far behind them, though, because the infighting is taking place. Still at the front is Andy. He can't go on much longer. And at second wheel is Valverde, then Bernard Cole, and then Kreuziger, Frank Schleck, Cadel Evans, Menchov, Sastre. They're all still there.
And the one man you forgot to mention, of course, Christian Van der Velde, looking very comfortable. I think this is the kind of climb that suits Christian Van der Velde here this afternoon. Evans on his own, but there's only one team that's got a multiple number of riders in there, and that's Team CSC. Van der Velde, 191 at the back, still pedaling very supplely and keeping himself in contact with the yellow jersey. I think when you're a guy like Christian Van der Velde, you've got to pick a rider to try and follow. I'm amazed at how well Van der Velde is riding in the Tour de France this year, Phil. He really has become the revelation for the United States.
If he runs out of these Alps with a very close time loss to the leader, he can win in the time trial. He's very, very quick. Up front there, the three riders, I think, have tried their attacks and haven't had an answer. It might go down to the finishing sprint, which, of course, is very much uphill. As we go back here, the rider in the lime green, the only thing we're certain about, Paul, in that group, as we look at it, one of them will win the Tour de France in Paris. There's nobody else in this race.
Absolutely, one of those riders in the yellow jersey group, which has created this afternoon the first serious selection. But let's not forget, after this stage today, Phil, there's a rest day, and then there's two more vicious days in the Alps, and this race can turn upside down on any one of those occasions. The three leaders, look at Danny Pate here.
Well, he's strong.
He is extremely strong. He's riding well, and he's riding sensibly. He's waiting for the moves, he's waiting for the accelerations, and he decided, he looked at Simon Gerrans and said, well, I'm going to have a go myself and see if I can get rid of the Aussie, but he can't.
He lifts the pace. He's forced Simon Gerrans to get out of the saddle and close the gap, and he's just checked on him. And sometimes, if you're feeling strong, you let the rider think he's getting on, you kick again.
Martinez has got...
yes, and he wasn't looking either, was he, Danny Pate? That wasn't an expense. That could have been an expensive move, but Pate has a lot of strength in these legs. He's going after Martinez. I don't know why he keeps on checking on Gerrans. Gerrans is a fighter. This man knows how to suffer, and he's trying to go back. Meanwhile, our other Tour de France is on the lower slopes, and Andy Schleck is pushing on as he tries to go clear now.
Well, Andy Schleck has taken off there because he's seen a little move going clear there, and I think Denny Menchov...
he's gone down. What did he hit there?
He just slipped on the road. Menchov was making his big move of the day, Phil, and he went down and his chain is off. Well, he's going to have to get himself back in. Just look at this. He just goes around the corner and it's so slippy.
There is no reason for that, I think. And in fact, I can look out the window here. The rain has just started, can you believe? And it's becoming quite heavy in the last few kilometres. And that was simply the grease on the surface of the road. Well, the riders saw that, but there'll be no waiting now.
Phil, that was a scary move by Denny Menchov. We knew this man was the silent mover, the silent man in the main field, waiting for the move. Just looking down to check and see if there's any damage to his bike, and he says, no, it's okay, I've got to get myself back into this event. But you can see now why Denny Menchov has been regarded as a dangerous bike rider.
Well, you don't deserve bad luck like that, but the rain has just started. It's just skimmed on the surface of the road here. It's caused a little bit of a regrouping of the boys here as Andy takes over the pacemaking. Brother Frank is down in the centre there. Valverde to the right, Cole to the left, Sastre to the back. They are all here.
Well, they're all here and they're all waiting. I'll tell you one thing, that Andy Schleck has got a fine pair of legs on him this afternoon, because he was immediately off in pursuit of the man from Russia who's just getting back into contact there. That's an indication that Denny Menchov, Phil, has got great form, but that was very sad for him to go down like that.
Well, we're still spread by exactly the same time gaps as when we started this race today. There is nothing in it. 57 seconds covers the top 5 men in the Tour de France. And if they finish like this, there will be no time differences again tonight. Andy Schleck wants Brother Frank to come out and grab a second.
Well, there's Kreuziger in second position there, another young rider, a star for the future. But Andy Schleck too, I think, Phil, will come back to the Tour de France one year and quite possibly be a winner. There is Damiano Cunego trying to pull himself back into this bike race, but in fact he's losing place. He was with that group there, and I think that is the group of Kim Kirken, and the little prince from Italy is not going to win the stage this afternoon, and he's just suffering.
He's at 2.5 kilometres behind the yellow jersey group right now. Wouldn't surprise me if he stays in Italy, quite frankly, because he's not firing like we expected. These are the leaders locked in combat for the win as they head up towards the summit of the climb. Still Martinez doing the work. And just who is the strongman of this group?
Well, Alejandro Valverde looks concentrated, looks good.
That's the secret weapon, Kreuziger.
Yep.
He's going to be such a great cyclist.
He's going to be a great bike rider. He's lost himself a lot of time in the Tour de France this year, Phil, but it's only his first serious attempt. He started the day in 19th place overall. Now another acceleration coming from Andy Schleck, saying to them, take this one if you can, because I'm going to hurt you, men, and we're going to hit you again before the summit.
This is a rider who was dropped by the group, who fought his way back and went straight to the front and stretched them again. And he's put Sanchez in a little bit of trouble with acceleration. Still hanging slightly off is Carlos Sastre. He's not riding smoothly, number 11. But Christian van der Velde, he is still following. He's not under pressure.
Van der Velde, 191 in the white jersey there of Garmin Chipotle, looking very comfortable. He's alongside Cadel Evans. And right in front of Cadel Evans, Evans is keeping his eye very firmly on the red, white and blue jersey there of Andy Schleck.
Well,
Frank Schleck.
Yeah, the people on the side here, the Tifosi of Italy, are watching a yellow jersey really defend himself well on this climb. It's normally a pink jersey as leader of the Giro d'Italia, but not this time. The Tour's making its first to climb up here. The face of Andy Schleck has been superb. Kreuziger just licking his lips behind and is in no pressure at all. He's only 23 as well.
Well, at 2 kilometres to go, Phil, there are still 3 men in contact for the victory this afternoon. Danny Pate is trying to get the win for the United States of America. He looks across at Egoy Martinez to say, how are your legs, my mate? Can I beat you to the summit? In the yellow jersey group, though, they've got rid, I think, finally, of Sammy Sanchez, and there's another acceleration at the front.
And look at the back here, because Cadel Evans has got to grit his teeth right now. That is a very serious push by Menchov. That has hurt Cadel Evans, but he struggles and fights. He's looked over his shoulder, Menchov. He's seen the yellow in trouble, but he knows it's all coming back together again.
Well, that was a serious acceleration by Menchov, and I'm not a little bit surprised as to why he sat up, but it's allowed Cadel Evans to get himself back into this race. Bernard Cole there comes to the front, and he's now going to look for the acceleration, and that is a move that they need to respond to.
Well, we're looking at the real race to lead the Tour de France here. That is why our cameras are staying away from the men who are out to win the stage. We'll cut back by the time those riders get up the top. But right now, Cadel Evans and Frank Schleck, the 2 men likely to succeed, are both in a little bit of trouble.
The man who nailed back Bernard Cole there, in fact, was Alejandro Valverde. Now, that goes to show that Valverde is recovering as this race goes further forward. Sitting on the wheel of the yellow jersey now is Frank Schleck, and again the acceleration coming at the front, and this time again it's Denny Menchov.
And I think this time it's curtains for Andy Schleck, so they've lost a pacemaker. Cadel is on the whip end here. He's being flicked around at the back of this line. Menchov is advertising to everybody he's got the legs now, but Alessandro Valverde is simply superb, and on the outside now, a little move to just go to the head of the race.
Did you say that Andy Schleck was gone? Well, excuse me, he's just come back, and he's thinking about brother Frank, he's thinking about Carlos Sastre. This is an unbelievable team.
Kim Kirken trying to get back up into competition here.
He's around about a minute in arrears off the back end of the yellow jersey group. There is Efimkin, he's been dislodged. Cyril Dissel is in this group as well. Sandy Kassar just getting onto the back there as well. That looks like Fofanov.
It is Dimitri Fofanov. They are fighting, though, a little way down here. This is a duo battle. We'd like to see what's happening with the leaders. We're, of course, in the hands of our French direction here. We don't know of anything that's going on up front at the moment, but we will see them cross the line, I'm sure about that. We're looking here at the battle for the next wearer of the yellow jersey, nodding like the dog in the proverbial car window. Bernard Cole is trying again to answer. Where does Andy Schleck get this from?
Well, he gets it from the fact, Phil, that he was a white jersey winner of the Giro d'Italia last year, 2nd overall. He's got the ability to climb. He's hit them and hit them again, and he's trying to set something up. And look at this. Frank Schleck has seen the move now, and as soon as Frank Schleck gets to the wheel of his brother, he accelerates, but Cadel Evans is pinned to the back wheel of the man who is 1 second ahead of behind him in the overall classification.
Well, this is the group that's racing approximately 6 minutes behind the leaders. Let us not forget that. We're coming up to 1 kilometre to go. There they are. These are the 3 leaders of the day today. None will pull on the yellow jersey tonight. There is the kite for them, and Danny Pate is going to take them to the kite. The man who has looked completely fried for 100 kilometres seems to be extremely strong indeed. We are looking now further down the slopes, and this is another attack by Sastre.
Carlos Sastre is looking for the climb this afternoon. He's just about to get joined there, Phil, by Denny Menchov, covered as well by Bernard Cole. This man wants to win the Tour de France this year. He's put everything into the bank to try and win if he can. Finally, Andy Schleck goes to the back of the group, and they're having to put Cadel Evans onto the front. Evans is now in the defensive.
That's it, and he won't chase Valverde because Valverde's lost time. Now Cadel is looking for wheels. He's seen Frank Schleck go. He's got to chase Frank. 1 second splits them. Cadel Evans gets in the wheel of Christian van der Velde.
What a race this has been, Phil, and this is only the first of the Alpine stages. Look at the face here on Denny Menchov. He's trying to ride himself back into a top 3 position at the end of the day. Carlos Sastre is the man that set it up, but I tell you what, CSC are all over this race. Roman Kreuziger is the man now setting the pace ahead of Frank Schleck, and Cadel Evans is just pulling himself back into this. They have thrown everything at him this afternoon.
This has been a very tough time. There's a 1 second gap there right now. My opinion is Cadel should lose this yellow jersey and give it to Frank Schleck and live to fight another day. We've now seen Menchov is right into the red zone as well as he gets up behind Sastre. Sastre, he's the odd man out of the favourites. He needs some time gain now to start the long journey back. He can't ride the last time trial.
Well, Cadel Evans now is pretty much on the defensive, and again Christian van der Velde says, I'm going to go now. A lot of you can follow me if you can.
Well, there's some of the crowd up here on the finishing line as the 3 leaders head up towards the finish. No decision. Danny Pate of Garmin-Chipotle zigzagging across the road. Here comes the chase behind again. Menchov, Cole, Sastre, watch out. Valverde is creeping up. We've split it 4 and 4 here at the moment, and Christian van der Velde might be the saviour of Cadel Evans today.
He may well be. I think if you remember back to the climb up to Otakam, he was the saviour of Cadel Evans on that occasion too. Bernard Cole now comes out nodding that head of his in that strange gangly style to lift the pace once more. He's looking to improve on his 4th place overall at the start of the day, and he's not really looking for very much on Christian van der Velde.
They come up, they're about 1.5 kilometres behind the leaders of the race on the road today. That's how much they've closed up on what has become a totally personal battle between 6 or 7 men. The face of Sastre here. Every one of these riders today have dug into depths I doubt they ever knew they had.
Well, I tell you what, Phil, this is announcing that the next 2 days in the Alps are going to be very scary for the top 10 riders in the overall classification. Carlos Sastre has given his everything this afternoon, but we are not surprised to see the man in orange there, Denny Menchov, the Russian rider wearing 131. Cadel Evans finding some help here and assistance
at the finish. Danny Pate's broken, but look at the speed of Simon Gerrans. The Australian has left them all. They should have dropped him because this is going to give Australia a terrific stage winners. Chased home by Martinez. A win for Simon Gerrans after 4 Tours de France. He snatches the first ever victory, and that is absolutely delightful from the man from Mansfield in the state of Victoria. And a terrific result for Danny Pate. An all-day breakaway, and the USA rider gets 3rd.
Well, that was a brilliant performance by Simon Gerrans. After all, Phil, he was dropped at the start of the day, climbed his way back into the leading group of 3 and came up with the sprint. Now it looks to me as if Cadel Evans has been on the ground here this afternoon, because you can see a little bit of dirt on his elbows. There is Christian van der Velde just trying and fighting to stay in contact. They're getting some assistance here finally from a pacemaking that's been done by Sammy Sanchez.
Well, they've thrown everything at one another and they're almost neutralised here. Sammy Sanchez is trying to get up to them and help them out. Bernard Cole, Denny Menchov, Sastre and Valverde. None of them will affect the race destination tonight, but they're closing the gaps on Evans. He will note that.
Well, Bernard Cole in the blue jersey there, Phil, is looking for 46 seconds. That's all he requires at the end of today. And he's got with him the man who is just behind him in the overall classification, Denny Menchov. I'm not surprised to see now a little bit of backing off there by Andy Schleck. He's done a great job. Christian van der Velde still in contact here. 1st, 2nd and 3rd in the overall classification at the start of the day. But now it's Roman Kreuziger who's setting the pacemaking there for Cadel Evans, still in the yellow jersey.
5 riders at 1 kilometre to go now. The race is on to see who will be the next wearer of the Maillot Jaune. Carlos Sastre has to take time in the Alps. He has to, and Valverde has to take lots of time, but he wanted to do well. He wanted to prove a point today. He's the Spanish champion.
Alejandro Valverde will ride himself possibly back into the top 10 at the end of the Tour de France stage this afternoon, and he's got with him Denny Menchov. Phil, this is a great battle here, and there is the yellow jersey trying to keep it on his shoulders, and I'm looking at my clock here. He's already lost himself under the red kite, Phil, 33 seconds. So he's only just holding on to the yellow jersey ahead of Bernard Cole.
Well, my opinion, it'd be better if Cole took it away from him and took off a little bit of the pressure here, because the men that he really fears, I think, are around him, with the exception of Menchov, who is gaining time. And there goes Cole again, and this could be for the yellow jersey.
Well, Cole knows this, Phil. He knows he is so close to the yellow jersey here this afternoon. He's looking for 46 seconds. That's all he wants. He doesn't care about finishing 5th or 6th or 7th on a stage like this. And look at Carlos Sastre. He too is pulling himself back up there. And Alejandro Valverde is riding like the true Spanish champion that he is this afternoon.
Well, Carlos Sastre is 1 minute 28 behind Cadel Evans. He needs time, and he started to get it by the look of it. 500 metres to go. Cole surely must realise now he could be a yellow jersey wearing the Tour de France. That has never happened to him before. Don't worry about the time count, because that is the time on Simon Gerrans, who's been home for 3 minutes. Cole, Sastre, Valverde's tracking a little bit.
Well, Cole gets out of the saddle again, Phil, over this final steep part of the climb. He doesn't have to worry about what position he's going to be this afternoon. He has to worry about the clock and what the clock is going to tell him. And once he's crossed the line, start your clock and try and count for 46 seconds, because that's what it's all going to be about at the end of the day. Has Cadel Evans and the group behind got any power left to try and pull back the gap that he had?
Menchov has been placed in serious trouble here and might go back to the Cadel Evans group, because Bernard Cole, who's threatened to do something, he is most certainly now the new leader of the King of the Mountains, and the clock may also make him the new leader of the Tour de France. He's going all the way to the line. It is a case of every second counts, and Sastre is also gaining time. This race today has not opened up. It is completely closed down. We are still talking about a matter of seconds, and now 44 will do.
49 it's going to have to be. There is Alejandro Valverde going in. Look at the clock at the bottom there. It's 4 minutes and 13 seconds. Cadel Evans has to cross the line, Phil, inside of 4 minutes and 49 seconds if he's going to keep the yellow jersey. Here is Menchov. He's been tailed off as well on the run-up towards the finish. Cadel Evans now in the yellow jersey is battling to keep that yellow jersey on his shoulders. Schleck has gone. Van der Velde is gone.
Well, if it's not going to be Cole, it'll be Schleck, because there's a second gap here. As we come up now, 37 seconds has gone by. Frank Schleck is in, and it looks to me as though he's got about 4 or 5 seconds. 43, 44, 45, 46. Cadel Evans is going to keep yellow or lose it to Frank Schleck.
He's going to lose it by a fraction, and I have a feeling, Phil, that it's going to be Bernard Cole who will be in the jersey this afternoon. It'll be close.
Well, it'll be very close, but I'll tell you what, I reckon there's 4 seconds separates the top 3 riders in the Tour de France tonight. But this man, forget it. Simon Gerrans, one of the nicest guys in the sport, is now a stage winner in a Tour de France. And Australia won't believe it. They'll be so delighted.
Well, it's going to be a bitter-sweet message, I think, for Australia, because I have a feeling that the yellow jersey will have been taken off the shoulders of Cadel Evans at the end of the day, and Kim Kirken has recovered a fraction over the last few kilometres. He crosses the line there at around about 5.5 minutes.
Well, it is going to be so interesting to see tonight. I thought that by my watch the jersey will pass to Frank Schleck by maybe a second, but it's so close. I think if we go for 4 across the top 3, we won't be far away. What a Tour de France.
It's going to be very close indeed. I tell you, that's what the riders have battled up here this afternoon. But Frank Schleck did what he needed to do. He put him a second between himself and Cadel Evans. So it all really depends on just exactly what time the clock said when Frank Schleck came across the line. But Bernard Cole certainly gave his all this afternoon.
And is assured of 1 jersey. He's the polka dot leader as the King of the Mountains. Well, we're thinking at the moment it is probably Schleck Cole Evans, but it could be Cole Schleck Evans, it could be Evans Schleck Cole. Per many 1 from 3. That's the way this Tour de France is. But one thing's for sure, look at this time loss here as they come over the line, and this is the little prince, Damiano Cunego. He's lost nearly 6 minutes, almost 7 to the winner today. And so he's come down, he's lost nearly 3 minutes to the Evans area group.
No, he definitely had. He was hoping to ride high in the overall standings this afternoon, Phil, to try and wave himself to the Italian crowds. Well, there is a confirmation of the result. Simon Gerrans has got the results, but I think what's more important, Phil, is at 4:41 is Frank Schleck, so I've got to do my maths very quickly.
There's a big time gap there, but it's been a great day today in the Tour de France.
Well, my quick calculation gives me, I think, Frank Schleck as the overall leader ahead of Bernard Cole at 7 seconds, and Cadel Evans dropping down into third place, 8 seconds adrift. Menchov moves up into fourth, and Christian van der Velde drops down into fifth. Well, the first three riders now separated by 8 seconds, and still we've got more battles to do in the Alps.
Well, riders still coming over the line. Reminder, you can see highlights of today's stage at 7 o'clock, highlights from the rest day tomorrow at 7. We'll be reviewing the whole of the race since the last rest day. But really, Chris Boardman, 2 absolutely great races today. A great Australian stage win, but the real race for the yellow jersey going on behind, and Cadel Evans losing it.
Well, it's just getting a lot more interesting because the best time trialist has lost the most time. The worst time trialist has gained them, and it's great now. I mean, Frank Schleck, he needs to do a lot more of that to actually be safe for the time trial. He was in the 40s in the last time trial, so he's got a lot to make up. Denis Menchov, well, he's in a great position as well, so it depends on how much he cracks on the next climb.
They've both gained on Cadel Evans, a man we barely mentioned, although he's been in fourth place for a lot of this race. Bernhard Kohl of Gerolsteiner up into second, and he was the man who was the most aggressive towards the end of the final climb.
He was, yeah, he was riding for the jersey there, and he thought he was in with a shout, and it was all dependent on who died the most behind him. Fantastic race to watch, and it's at the moment it's anybody's with this time trial.
Rest day tomorrow, which Cadel Evans will certainly welcome, because he was very isolated on that final climb. We've got 2 more great days in the Alps to come after that.
Yeah, and I don't know how he's going to resist the attacks, to be honest, because he looked shaky on the last mountains as well. So I don't think it was actually to do with his crash. I think that was just the ability he's got in the mountains compared to these other guys.
And CSC, who do you think their leader is? I mean, Schleck's up there. Are they looking to launch Sastre? They've got options, haven't they?
I think so, yeah, and that's probably their strongest card at the moment. They've got 2 people who have to be taken seriously, but to be honest, I think Schleck's probably got the edge on the 2. Sastre, not so good.
All right, well, there's plenty more to talk about on this stage. First big Alpine stage, and it has blown this race apart. Cadel Evans is no longer in the race leader's yellow jersey. He's down to third. Bernhard Kohl up to second. Frank Schleck, who missed out by a second, now finally has the yellow jersey. We're going to take a quick break, recompose ourselves. We'll be back at 7 o'clock with the highlights, all the interviews, and we will mop this stage up for you. See you then.